Hey guys, last time we got together to talk about the villains and the types of villains that you'll see and create for your games, how to create them, as well as starting on small kind of scenarios which will help build them up. This time, I wanted to talk about something equally important to villain introductions in various games, but perhaps more so than the scenarios and how to build them, their various backgrounds and that. The most important thing for villains, in my mind, next to their actual plan, is the villainous reveal. The reveal of a villain can be pretty damn important in terms of establishing them. It is their first impression, their first moment. It gives players their first look at the villain as a threat, as well as just generally introducing their personality. For example, in Harry Potter, Lord Voldemort is first revealed as a monster on the back of Quirrell's head. This establishment pretty much follows him throughout the series. No matter how whole he becomes later on, he's always a broken monster. He will always be pictured as such, trying to bring back the world in the way that he sees it. Then, in Star Wars, we have Darth Vader, who's often labelled as the most iconic villain. And again, given his introduction, given his reveal, it's pretty clear why. The sheer power of Vader is clear in the opening scene. Stormtroopers rush in and make way for him, and he marches on, inspects some of the bodies nearby without really much of a care. Then, when interrogating a captured soldier, he strangles them with his bare hands. Entirely unnecessary given the power we know him to have, despite showing his outward brutality, which is even more empowered in the Rogue One version of events. He then has a long and fairly eloquent conversation with an Imperial officer after dealing with Princess Leia. It gives the viewer a really strong sense of Darth Vader being this powerful villain with a strong swing towards violence to get his ways done, but ultimately more of a lordly personage, speaking with just general understanding of his surroundings and the importance of his mission. In a few simple minutes, you've written this character, who the viewers have only just seen, to have a ton of substance. There's a lot of kind of work in the back of your mind that will build up his general importance to the Empire. You know, despite not knowing his position, despite not knowing really who he is, this man is clearly very important in this Empire that you've just met. He's clearly a central figure. He's shown himself to be a commanding officer that other officers listen to and take his feedback from, and that the enemy fears. All of this done in the span of roughly around 10 to 15 minutes of the film. This goes for the same kind of thing in D&D. In a short amount of time, you have to give a similar first impression. To take a more D&D setting, I've done my own reveal with my first campaign villain, though for a delayed setup. First off, she was met as a worried future head of a priestly order that she was part of, the unsuspecting, trembling worm of a character who the players took pity on, the kind of character who would speak with a lisp and really just kind of be fearful of all of those around her. Feeling she was abused by the order that she was in, they immediately befriended her and even offered her some kind of future support, worried that the other cardinals and kind of abbots above her might end up abusing her in some way. All of this would work in her favour in the background as she worked her way to the top of the order and eventually overtook it as a figurehead, becoming a little bit more emboldened. This would come to its head in the combination of all the events in the campaign. The players were visiting this ancient capital city and everything went to hell suddenly. The city was burning, crazed cultists were running around, and horrors were walking the streets. They rushed up to the cathedral to defend her and the remaining priesthood, only to find that she was standing there at a dais with a great pulsating scar of energy hanging in the air before her, giving visions of this decaying, dying world beyond. A world that she seemed to be entranced by, more than the decaying world around her and all of the suffering that had clearly happened to the church. Now, the players being several levels in at this point, and very much at that kind of unstoppable point in D&D of heroes that must be listened to, they were completely unperturbed by the wanton destruction around her and rushed in to offer her some kind of compassion to help this broken, hunched over woman, only for her to turn around, spin about, and for the music that I had set up to kick in with this cackling laughter, for her to immediately stab the player who had rushed in to help her and send him flailing down the dais back towards his allies. And I had her do this monologue of betrayal, turning around and just sort of giving various specifics about what happened in the campaign that she clearly knew throughout all of it, and giving her own twist on it, how their players had gone against her and she couldn't allow this to happen. A very kind of crazy, prolonged diatribe that showed the insanity to which she had succumbed to, and her general disregard for life. She had always been this way, but she was so focused on her vision of this broken world that she saw beyond this scar that she destroyed this bastion of hope in the current time and burnt it to the ground in order to help fulfill her goals. I could expand upon this more, but it would probably take a long time to really explain the details of a campaign that's fairly old at this point. The point more is that in this moment you understand that this is a character who is very insane, who has betrayed you, and has done it in a calculating fashion. They were never the character the players knew earlier on in the campaign. They were always this person, and that gives a kind of momentary big reveal for her that someone we knew and trusted would go this far as to turn around and destroy all of this just to ensure that the player's goal wouldn't come closer to fruition over their own goal. Now, why is that important? I just want to touch on it briefly so that you understand. The most important thing to know about Villainous reveals is how much they should frame your character. The villain is vulnerable when they first appear. They've been hiding all this time, building up power. What token is enough for them to come out and proudly declare, I am here, to the whole world? Why would they do that? There has to be some kind of draw for why they would do it. In the examples above, for Voldemort, it's pretty simple. He wants the Philosopher's Stone. He wants immortality. He wants to be revived and come back into the world. So it makes sense that he's making so much risks. For Darth Vader, who's already at the height of his power, pretty much, it's the Death Star plans. It's the hole in the Empire that could be abused by the Rebel Alliance. It's this moment of weakness that he's trying to forestall by coming out and standing against them. For my own character, it was the players forming an alliance with her enemy. They were going to put her in a situation of difficulty. Unable to allow that, she put them in an unwinnable situation where she would remove one of the pieces of the board no matter what. She wanted them to join her, but realising that other factors had come into play to basically make that impossible right now, she decided instead to remove that factor from the future and thereon crush the enemy. The players would hate her, several other factors would come into play, but it ultimately made sure that her goal was still possible. And that is why she appeared. A villain should only appear when they are furthering their goal. They are, after all, the big bad. A dragon leaves its hoard for a significant sum of gold, burning city or town. It's not going to leave its hoard for 5 gold pieces that you've dropped on the road, and that same understanding should be how you view your villain. If the villain's goal is to become the king of a realm, then they aren't going to burst in a ceremony where the players are all being granted knighthoods. Why would they care? It doesn't matter to them. Maybe they'll be in attendance, maybe they'll make some kind of comment, maybe they'll even pat the players on the back. But if it is the changing of the line of succession and the crown of kings is on display there, then is that not the perfect moment for them to storm the castle and usurp the ruler, to have the king's advisor turn on him and blame his death on the knighted players? That is a moment which furthers their goals, and so out they come into the light. Every story has a beginning, a middle and an end, but this doesn't really tell the example I'm trying to give. Storytelling isn't that simple. The story should be viewed like a roller coaster, in a certain way at least. There's a gradual rising, the building of tempo before it swings down on the ride. The villain's job is to be at the peak of this building tempo, the tallest climb, then snap the brakes, sending the narrative tumbling down on a speedfall and bringing in a rush of everything happening. Their role is the agency and chaos of the story, whilst the protagonist and players are stability. Sure, they bring their own agency, but if you only allow it to be them, then they also bring a degree of stagnation. If you only let the action be the players, they'll just do what they want to do, which isn't to say that you shouldn't let players do what they want to do, but generally, protagonists in stories, heroes, will bring a degree of safety and stability. They'll further their own strength, they'll slow things down as they kind of secure things up, build up the town, build up the defences, build up the world. Very good in small doses, but the villain needs to be there to knock it down. The villain, simply put, is the DM's tool for agency, though Maybe we'll go into specifics of that in another video. That I think might make a good part 3 for this, so maybe later on. For now, I'll give you a few examples of what you could do to reveal a brand new villain before we close out the video. Above we had the Kingmaker villain, someone who wants to rule the realm in the reveal. They'll be coming close to that or actively trying to achieve it, and thus arriving at the ceremony, as I said, overriding it, slaying the king. They might get the crown, they might declare themselves king, but all isn't lost. They haven't lost the whole game yet. The kingdom hasn't settled down from the tragedy. No one has officiated that the king is actually the villain. Maybe it's not been written into documentation yet, it's not been put into law. The kingdom is still in turmoil. There is still time to right the wrong. Maybe you have a necromancer. Necromancers are popular enemies and villains, so how would we reveal one? Gaining dead bodies isn't particularly difficult in medieval times or fantasy settings, so you need to focus on something which will present a big boon to the villain. Again, maybe there's some magical item falling into their hands or some ancient spell. To take the D&D movies approach, the villains are going to cast a city-wide necromantic spell, and they've planned it at a major festival, gathering players and people from all over the realm. This would then create a massive number of undead under their sway, and this could happen or not happen. Maybe the players have this as their introductory mission and they stop it somehow, but the fact that such a world-ending event was what the necromancer planned to do would be a huge way to bring about that threat. You could also maybe have a legendary hero's grave nearby and they seek to revive that. There could be another one that more directly introduces the players is maybe the big boon for the necromancer is the threat that players have killed. Have the players hunting dragons under the call of a curious advisor of the king. They keep informing him of the dead drakes and where their lairs are, how their progress is doing, only to find much later the advisor returns to conquer the city with the undead dragons at his beck and call, or some hydra-like abomination of the amalgamated body parts all smashed together. This is a way to show that player engagement has led to the villain acting out. He's taken this moment at the peak of his power to try and take the stage, to become in control of the narrative. Oftentimes we kind of see the villain as the DM's player in a way, and it shouldn't be said to be that. The villain is there to essentially be the pushback on players, because having a story where you are only ever winning, well, it's not a struggle, and struggle is what breeds emotional development. It breeds a bit of fun in the narrative. If the players are just winning and winning and winning, well, then there's no real story there, is it? It's just the story of an endless victory. Now, you might be saying, and very fair enough if you do, that, come on, aren't these all a little bit overpowered? You know, very high tier villains. I just want to have someone a little bit evil, maybe a bit mean, a pirate, a criminal. That's fine. That's totally fine. I understand. Doesn't mean that these characters don't have their own reveals. Often with weaker sorts, you're going to use their henchmen instead to give a sense of authority. Low level players get busted on a mission. Maybe they're trespassing where they shouldn't, trying to retrieve an artifact that's fallen into the wrong hands, or breaking into a manor of a low-level crime lord, and the guards burst in to arrest them. In this moment, bringing them to the floor, putting handcuffs on them, and the players plead their situation, plead that this is a criminal, that they are doing justice, only to have the villain arrive in that moment and hand a bag of gold to the guards, smiling and giving exchanges of, well, you should have known not to cross me. Even simple exchanges like that, in their players' heads go, oh, he's connected, he knows his guards, can I trust anyone in the city? How deep do his clutches go? In comparison to the other characters we talked about, this is relatively minor, but again, it is a reveal. It is a real reveal that shows the villain's hand. You were about to take something very important from them, they snatch it back, and develop their power and show you a little bit of their hand, a little bit of how much authority they have, giving you that kind of that personality building moment. Every reveal should be an opportunity for you to show the villain off. Villains come in all shapes and sizes, honestly, even minor villains, and the importance of the reveal is utmost and needs to be given the same level of thought as the actual plan. People generally make their minds up very, very quickly, and the first impression is only going to be given once. Give your characters the very best chance at having that impact, so that in the future sessions, you're the kind of villain that prompts everyone into character, focusing up, building up the moment, as everyone kind of stops the jokes and goes, hang on, this guy is someone I care about in my backstory, or this guy did something to an NPC that I care about. This guy is a true nemesis. And that is what a reveal for a villain should truly be, creating a nemesis. But thank you for watching. I think we'll stop it there. If you've enjoyed this talk about villains, then show me a little support down below, comments, likes, it all really helps, guys. Even consider subscribing if you want, or you want to see some future videos. Heaven forbid, if you want to go further in supporting me, you can find my Patreon down below in the link. Every little thing helps, it really does, and I'll say thank you again. I'll be back soon with another video. I'll also be doing a part 3 of the Villains series, and we'll probably finish it up there. There's some other stuff I want to do, things about Final Fantasy, things about D&D, maybe talk again a bit about Baldur's Gate, we'll see. But for now though, goodbye, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Have a good one till then.